Hello peoples and popples, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Fiction&Flora. You can call me Flora, and today we are doing a wrap-up for January 2023. I haven't done a wrap-up in a good year, maybe more, because I just wanted to see what it would be like not to, but I kind of miss doing a little cataloging of my month's reading. Today I am recording my voice on my phone. We're going to see how this works as a microphone in hopes that maybe it's a little bit better than listening to my camera's audio. Maybe, I don't know. And we're using natural light because that's all I got. Sorry. But anyway, I'm really excited to have another reading wrap up. I'm going to try and do them every month that I actually do end up reading. Like last year I went 3 months without reading a single page, so who knows. But I am going to try to do them every month just because I like talking about books. And y'all apparently like being here, so here we are together. The two, maybe three of us. Anyway. Without further ado, let's get to my first book of the year, and that is A History of Fear by Luke Dumas. This was one of my most anticipated for 2022. I actually ended up pre-ordering this, but due to my reading slump, I just never picked it up. It came out December 6th, so honestly, I wasn't that far behind, but I didn't end up reading it until January. And this book follows how do I describe it? This book follows Scotland's most terrifying, controversial murderer. That's what I'm going to use. And it is a novel, so it's not based on a true story. But basically, in the story, we have a character who is known as the Devil's Advocate. He is someone who, in the story, was claimed that the devil made them do his crimes, and that made him notorious amongst the population. And so what we're doing in the story, we are introduced to it by a reporter who was reading the journal of the murderer, at which point we start reading that journal as well. But it is interspersed with the journalist's interviews, court documents, psychologist's notes, I think. And so we just get little sprinklings of that while also reading through the journals of this killer and finding out that his progression and deterioration over time. I enjoyed this book. I would not give it a 5-star. I think I'm sitting at like a 3.75/4 because I think the writing was incredibly good. And I also think that the story was very tight. It made sense the entire way through. I understood it very easily. I enjoyed this book. However, it might just be due to the time period which this is supposed to be taking place in, which I think is the 90s. Oh, don't quote me. But the interactions that they had between mental health and sexuality and those kinds of things really rubbed me the wrong way. And it's not to say that they didn't make sense within the context of the books, but it's just something that was a detriment to my own enjoyment. I would still recommend this, especially to anyone who enjoys like true crime. This I think would be a good introduction to horror. If you are a true crime person or someone who is maybe thriller, but if you want to start reading horror, I think this would be a good introduction book because, like I said, it has kind of that feel to it. Like when I first started reading it, I had to double check that it was just a novel and not based on anything because, it felt a little bit too real. So I would recommend this, and I think that's all my thoughts on it. My next book is a picture book called Nanette's Baguettes by Mo Williams. Actually, a close friend of mine, her girlfriend recommended her this book because it's her favorite book, and it is a picture book, and I think it is very cute. I did not like some of the lessons in it, because most children's books do have a lesson, even if it's not a big one, but I did not really like the lesson in it, which I'm not saying it's a bad book. I'm just saying that I probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone in my family who has tiny people. Obviously, I did not rate this because it's not had like 20 pages. Like, what am I rating? But I think it's very cute. I enjoyed the pictures, the illustrations. Here we go. I know words. But like I said, I didn't really like the lesson in this book. So like I said, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to anyone in my family. But if they happen to pick it up, I'm not going to discourage them. Does that make sense? I don't know. The next one I read is Fina by Nino Cipri. I actually saw this in Books and Lala's video for when she was reading Booktuber's favorites. And it was one of Mayana's favorites of 2022. And I see why. I don't always like either of their recommendations just because we read a little bit differently. But I know they have great taste, both of them. So the fact that both Mayana and Books and Lala liked this book, I was like, okay, I've got to try it out. And so I did, and it was great. This one I gave 4 stars. It's following a woman and her ex who both work at a big box store similar to like a IKEA. So it's got those confusing walkways, and it's got these generic rooms and stuff. And they have they've got the crushing capitalism living their lives through it. But they lose a customer into what we find out is a black hole. This isn't a spoiler. It happens in like the first chapter. And so it's their responsibility to traverse this black hole to find this customer. And as they move through it, they start to think about what their place within that company looks like means to them and how it's affecting their life. Outside of that, there is discussion of their relationship to one another and others around them, their place in this world, what they want. And it's a very short book, but I think it's very good. And I love a weird book. I also love a book that's placed in IKEA, something or other. Like Horror Store by Grady Hendrix is one of my favorite books because I do love the use of that space. As someone who works at a Walmart for years, not consecutively, but multiple years, if you like, it is soul sucking. I'm not gonna lie. So I really love when authors take that setting, something that is inherently exhausting and confusing, and they use it to really emphasize the horror that could come out of that space. Oh, I loved it. So I really enjoyed that book. I gave it a 4 star. And then the next book I read is Defect, which is the second book. It is a companion. So it's not following the same characters, but it is in the same universe, in the same store. Like, these characters know one another, but the ones from the original ones don't show up for long in this one. And I like this one so much. I gave it a 5 star. It was so great. This one we're dealing with a different character who was actually the catalyst for why. Wow, without the context of the books, it's a lot. So, in Fina, the character we're following is only at the store because Derek, the character in the second one, was sick for the day. So, we're following Derek after he comes back to work and the repercussions of that. And, like, this is his first ever day off. He has never taken one off, and he's been extremely loyal to the company his entire time. He follows all the regulations. He's very, like, for the story, he's a gung-ho employee for life. And his one day off has management questioning his dedication. And so he gets a punishment, a consequence of taking that day off, because even though he was sick, they're like, you don't take sick days. You wanted a personal day. And he's like, no, I didn't. And with him, and so that consequence is him having to work a different shift. And from there, the story kicks off, and it's great. We explore identity, what it means to be you, especially in a world where fucking black holes are a thing. We explore what it means to break free of expectations. Oh, I had a great time, and it's really short and really easy. I listened to the audiobook for both Fina and Defect, and I would highly recommend both. Is there anything else? No. So those are the 4 books I ended up reading in January. I enjoyed all of them. In order, I think we're going Defect, Fina, A History of Fear. Then we're not counting Nanette's Baguettes because, again, it's a picture book. But I recommend every single one of these books. And I hope that February is just as good as far as my reading goes. And as far as my enjoyment of my reading goes. Tell me how you like the phone as an audio device. It might have been all out of whack because I have been like moving it around as if I wasn't recording. Oops. But hopefully the audio is a little bit better. Again, sorry about the lighting. And that's all I've got for this video. If you'd like to hang out with me, I am on Twitter, Instagram. Where else am I? I'm on Twitter and Instagram. My Tumblr exists. I ain't been on it in forever, but you can get there, I guess. Goodreads, Storygraph, and Readerly. So those are the places you can find me. I will have them linked below. Thank you again for coming back to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!